Your performance review was written before the review cycle even started. Not drafted, not outlined, written. And the rating was already decided. The language was chosen. The narrative was already set. And everything that happened between then and your actual performance review was not even an actual evaluation. It was a collection of evidence to support a conclusion that they already made. I know this because I was in those rooms 30 years inside of executive HR at the highest level that anybody could ever go in the HR career field. I sat across from those managers who made those decisions before the cycle even opened, and I watched the documentation get built to justify what was already decided. Today, I'm going to show you 4 moves that happened before a PIP ever arrived. Things that look completely normal, completely innocent, things that people and employees don't even realize is happening to them, and they dismiss it as just a way that business is done. You're going to know what to do before the next move lands. I'm going to pull back the curtains and let you see actually inside, and by the end of this episode, you're going to be able to look back at your last 90 days and see exactly what is being built right now. So think about the last time you boarded a plane, right? If you paid for an upgraded seat, you checked in, you booked your flight, you got inside of the plane, you sat down, and you have the confirmation in hand, right? You got the boarding pass, the seat number, maybe you know how you're boarding the plane, what lane you're going to be in, the order that you're going to board the plane. And then as soon as you get to the gate, the flight attendant tells you that they need to move you out because someone else needs your seat. That has been a change. There has been a change. You did everything right? You paid, you confirmed, you showed up on time, and none of that matters because the decision about your seat was made before you even got to the gate. The process of moving you was the execution to something that was already decided. And that is exactly what pre-PIP documentation campaign looks like. You doing your job, you showing up to work, you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, and you're hitting all your targets, you're hitting all the metrics, and somebody above you, somebody above somewhere made a decision about getting you out. Everything that happens next is not performance management. It's execution. The 4 moves that I'm about to show you is how that execution starts. It's how the play is made. So I'm Noël, and I am the founder of HR Armor. I'm a strategic case architect, not a coach, not a counselor, not a therapist, a strategic case architect. And I directed thousands of workforce, thousands of workers with multi-million-dollar budgets. They sent me across the globe to train executives on how to build the documentation framework that stood up in court and that was defensible in front of a judge. I was on the inside for over 30 years fighting for what was right, even when the organization did not even want me to tell employees what to do. They didn't want me to tell employees what to do. They would always literally tell me, Noël, you don't work for employees, right? You don't work for them. They don't pay your salary. They don't pay your bills. They don't pay your check. They don't pay you. We do. You work for the organization. They would tell me they wanted someone good, but they didn't want somebody as outstanding as I was to do the job that I was doing because they didn't want me to teach employees exactly what I'm teaching you now, which it didn't stop me then. And that's why I'm doing this, because it's not going to stop me now. So I'm going to show you what it looks like before the paperwork and the file gets on your desk as an employee. I'm going to show you what the executives do, what the leadership does, what the management does behind closed doors. This show actually exists because you are never taught what actually happens behind the scenes. So make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Before I forget to say something, hit it now so you stay up to speed and protect yourself before work turns against you too. So let's jump right in. Let's get started, right? Okay, so here is chess move number 1. I call it the review that was already written. So here's the scenario, right? The performance, like the perfect scenario, the performance review cycle opens. It's calendar year, it's physical year, it's whatever. The performance review cycle is open. Your manager sits you down. They walk through your ratings. They have examples. They got a file. They have documentation. It looks thorough. It looks complete. It looks objective. But what you don't know is that the cycle started before they even had the cycle start on paper, which means that the cycle started before you even knew that you were in the cycle, in the performance cycle. The documentation was collected already to support it. The conversation you are having is not an evaluation, it's a notification. That's the difference. So what actually happens is your manager conducts the performance cycle at the end of the performance review period. They have the documentation, they have the examples, they have the ratings, and the process looks standard because that's how a normal performance review process is supposed to go. That's how it's supposed to look. What the supervisor does is they collect the file for your entire time for that rating period and even a file for your entire performance cycle and your employment cycle, which is considered contemporaneous notes. So contemporaneous documentation and contemporaneous notes means that it was created at the time that the event occurred, not reconstructed later, not done after the fact, not assumed after the decision was made. So if your manager cannot produce notes, emails, chain of events in record format that's already documented during the actual performance period to support the rating, then that's a gap. That's a period that is not accountable. And that gap actually belongs in your parallel record, because in most organizations, when a termination or a PIP is being planned, the destination is decided first. The performance rating that justifies it is assigned before the cycle closes. So the documentation collected during the cycle is selected to support the rating, not to produce it. So it happens before the rating is actually given. They have the documentation to support what they're already going to give you. They have the documentation to support what they have already pre-decided. So the review conversation itself exists to create a record that the employee was informed, that the employee understands what is happening. But nothing is said in that room that changes the outcome itself. So that's why it's also important to do what's called a self-assessment. That's when you have the opportunity, you have the time, you have the chance to put your side of the record on file as far as the fact pattern before the supervisor delivers you their actual rating. That means you can tell the supervisor, hey, I did X, Y, and Z. So the supervisor is not only looking at the past 20 days, the past 6 months, they have to look at the past year or whenever that performance cycle started. They have to look at that entire period, and not only something that was recent or something that they remember, something as far as their recollection that they can hold against you. Because a lot of times supervisor only see the bad. That's what they record, what you did wrong, what you missed, what they wanted you to do that you didn't do. That's what they record. But what they don't always record is your accolades, your data boys, the things that you did so well, that you got congratulations, that you got a lot of thank yous, that you got the notification that you did a fantastic job. They don't always keep that data. They only keep what makes them look better. And sometimes what makes them look worse. And if your supervisor doesn't like you, if your supervisor got a problem with you as an individual, as a person, not necessarily as an employee, that will be reflective in their performance review of you as well. So here's your move, right? Here's what you do. You pull your last 3 performance reviews, okay? Catch this because it's key. Pull the last 3 performance reviews and look at the trajectory. Look at that. Because a sudden drop in ratings after years of consistent performance is not a reflection of your work. It's the foundation being laid. Ask your managers for specifics, specific documentation, specific examples, specific notifications that you needed to improve something something, that you were not doing something that was meeting expectations. Ask them for those examples, because if they cannot produce those contemporaneous documentation, those contemporaneous notes, that contemporaneous fact pattern to support what they are stating, then now you have something to close the gap and to hold them accountable for. Because the most common pre-PIP move I have actually seen and I have watched from the executive HRC is a sudden downward shift in the performance rating in the cycle immediately that precedes the PIP itself. So catch what I'm saying, right? So if you had a performance review in 2025 that was so-called outstanding, and now in 2026 you still got the same supervisor, you've been doing the same job, you've been still performing exceedingly well, and all of a sudden you got a meets expectations, that is 2 levels below outstanding. Because even if you were a strong performer, the moment the cycle drips, the moment your performance drips inside of that cycle, watch the next cycle, because the next quarter is most likely when a PIP is going to come. Watch and mark my words. That's how it goes. Because the drop was not a reflection of your performance. It was the justification being built. Because they can't put you on a PIP if you are meeting expectations, if you are exceeding expectations, if you are an outstanding employee. They can't put you on a PIP. They can only put you on a PIP if you are not meeting expectations, if you are not meeting that baseline. And that's when they can put you on a PIP, because they have the justification, quote unquote, in the documentation, quote unquote, to support the PIP, to support the rating, to support the decrease. But you cannot be on that PIP unless the rating predating that precedes that supports it. And I'm not just talking about like a mid-year review, right? I'm actually talking about a final rating of record. Make sure that your supervisor doesn't try to catch you up on that. If you don't actually have a final rating, you cannot be put on a PIP. You have to be given something. You have to be given the opportunity to perform. You have to be given the opportunity to do the job, perform the duty, to complete the task. You have to be put on notice that you are not meeting expectations in order for you to be put on a PIP. So that was chess move number 1. Chess move number 2. When your manager stops giving you feedback. This happens so often, I can't even tell you how many times this happens. Such as, if your manager used to correct you, they point things out, they push back when something was not right, and then at some point, they stop communicating altogether. No more red lines on your work. No more follow-ups after the meeting. No more coaching conversations. You thought it meant things were going well, that you were smooth sailing, like you were like underneath the carpet, you were just gliding. But that's not the case. It doesn't mean things are going well. Your manager not giving you constructive feedback or feedback at all, to include correction, coaching, follow-up, things that a normal manager would provide in a leadership role to a subordinate, to an employee, does not mean that you are not being positioned out. It doesn't mean that. The silence may feel like approval, right? The silence may feel like, they're not saying anything, so I'm good to go. They're not saying anything, so I must be meeting the expectation. They're not saying anything, so they must be leaving me alone. But that's not the case, because what actually happens is they go silent so that they can construct their move. They go silent so that they can look at that contemporaneous documentation, look at those notes, or they go silent so that they can get those notes together to justify the next action that they already had in mind. Because a PIP is supposed to follow documented attempts to address performance, which is written feedback, coaching conversations, prior warnings, prior opportunities to change it up, prior opportunities to meet the expectation. And remember, when none of that exists, The PIP looks like it appeared without cause. And that appearance is an actual problem for an organization. It creates what we call in HR a risk factor. So if there's no supporting documentation in the file when a supervisor tries to put you on a performance improvement plan or a coaching plan, anything dealing with the PIP, then it is a risk to the organization, and the supervisor doesn't know that. That's why they come to HR. And what does HR do? They turn around and they go to legal and they say, hey, look, the manager's going to put them on a PIP. Should we support it? Should we not? A lot of times legal says, I'm not going to get involved, because then that holds them accountable. That makes legal now aware of the situation before they are ready to be involved in it. So legal steps back. HR's like, manager's going to do what manager's going to do, and all we got to do is be ready for the fallout. So just make sure that you are creating documentation that supports anything that's going to be happening in your record. That doesn't just mean bad things. That also means documentation to support things that you've done well, things that you've exceeded, things that like recognition from your supervisor, recognition from your peer, recognition from your customers and your colleagues and your coworkers. It includes everything in your portfolio, because how the manager has a foul on you, you should have a foul on yourself too. When a manager stops giving feedback before a PIP, it's almost never because your performance improved. So if all of a sudden the manager was like, you need to check this box, you need to dot that I, you need to cross that T, you need to color this way inside the lines, and then all of a sudden the manager doesn't say anything, it doesn't necessarily mean that the problem is solved. It means that the manager is now pivoting, and that pivot could be an actual escalation, because feedback creates a record that the manager tries to help. So if the manager was telling you to do X, Y, and Z, make a file this way, have customer service that way, whatever the manager was saying, that feedback in any way that it came in provides the actual notice that the manager was attempting to rehabilitate you. It provides the notice that the manager was doing everything that they could to try to get you up to speed so that you were able to perform the job. So no feedback with no prior notice and no PIP does not mean that you in the clear. It just means that the manager was going to pivot. If your manager has gone quiet, again, don't interpret it as a green light. Just make sure you are doing your own move as far as documenting all of your wins, all of your successes, and anything else. Don't let the record of silence be the record that takes you down. You got to document the last time you even received specific feedback, because that is still a part of the record. You document the conversations where you were asked for input and received none. You send emails after meetings summarizing your understanding, summarizing your performance, summarizing your current state, summarizing that everything that you were doing at that time was according to the expectations given. And you can also ask if there is anything that you should be doing differently. And again, if your manager is still mute, if your manager is still quiet, then that does not mean that you are out of the danger zone. If I could just say that, it doesn't mean that. It just means that your manager is preparing for their next move, and you should be too. So chess move number 3. When they ask you to start documenting your own work, hear that clearly, right? Your manager asks you to start sending them weekly updates, copying them on projects. They want to be CC'd on the email line, courtesy copied on the project deliverables. They want you to keep a running log of what you're working on, what you delivered, what's the timeline, what were the setbacks, what was the feedback. They call it visibility. And they want to think that it's staying aligned, which is what they probably tell you. They say that leaders want better insight into team activity. They say that I got to justify a budget. I got to justify the increase. I have to show leadership what we are working on as a department. Stay alert. Stay alert. That is chess move number 3, because now you're writing your own file because they don't have the time to do it. So they're not going to do it. They're going to make you do it for them. They're going to make you write your own timeline against yourself to benefit them. So your manager asks you to begin documenting your work, sending regular feedback, sending cadence updates, and it's framed as visibility. It's framed as alignment. It's framed as sounding good, like a good management practice. But when the documentation request targets a specific example rather than an entire team, it's almost never about visibility. It's about you. So hear that again. So if nobody else on the team has to do regular reoccurring meetings with the supervisor, specific, detailed, chronological updates of everything that they're working on, detailed analysis of customer feedback, deliverables, timelines, targets. If nobody else on your team, none of your colleagues, none of your coworkers have to do that, and it's just you, you're already being targeted. You're already being positioned. They have already started the feedback track to get you out. Every gap in your update becomes a gap in the record. The supervisor will use your own updates, will use your own reports, will use your own information against you when it benefits them, especially if they are positioning you out. So here's the move that most employees miss. Most employees start to send the updates, right? They start working hard. They document diligently. They doing all these feedback follow-ups, phone calls, Slack team, Zoom messaging. Like they're doing all this stuff. But what they don't know is that the criteria that is being measured against has not even been shared with them yet. The PIP will name the criteria, but the updates have already been sent, which they're going to use as the measure standards against something that the employee was never given. So let me say that another way. When you are sending weekly reports, diligent updates to your supervisor, and if you do not have the metrics in which that data will be analyzed against, the updates in which that data will be compared against, then that is already information that the supervisor will be using against you, because there's no reason why you don't have the data. There's no reason why you don't understand how you're going to be measured. But the supervisors specifically use that and then have you send them the information, have the information you send them be used against you to say things like, that's not what you were supposed to be doing. Even though you sent this, what about that? Even though you sent a report on this customer, what about the deliverable on that customer? Even if you had no idea that that was an expectation, that was a requirement, even if that was never told to you at any time, they're going to use every single thing that you send them against you based on their own narrative about your performance, especially if the information is not clear, it's not articulated, and it's not in writing as far as visibility to you. So here's your move, right? Before you send an actual update, find out who else in your team received the same request. Who else has to send weekly updates? Who else has to meet with the boss all the time? Who else has to provide a granular level of visibility into everything that you do? If the answer is no one, you already got your answer. It's not about visibility. It's not about team dynamics. It's not about leadership wanting alignment above. It's not about that. So what you do is you ask your manager in writing what the specific format, the criteria, the measurables, the deliverables, and the updates need to be going forward. You get the standard in writing before you send them a single update. That's what you do. Don't send them anything at all until you understand what you need to send and the purpose behind you sending it, which has nothing to do with alignment, has nothing to do with visibility. It has nothing to do with any of that, but you need to know the criteria in which you're going to be held accountable for. Because once you start sending them stuff, then all they're going to do is they're going to pick through it, right? They're going to pick through it. They're going to say what you didn't do, not what you were assigned to do and how you did not meet that assignment. So don't let your company or your supervisor or the leadership send things to you that you don't know the actual requirement for. And make sure when you are keeping your documentation, you are keeping it outside of the company systems. That means not inside a company email, not on the company hard drive, the company master drive, not on the company laptop, the company cell phone, because that can be revoked at any time. And when they revoke your access, there goes all your documentation. So make sure everything that you are doing, you have a mirror copy that is in your own files, in your own records, and something that you can control, and something that IT cannot switch off, or something that IT cannot delete out of the system. I can't tell you how many times I've seen IT delete emails. Even if the company policy, even if the regulation or the law says that you're not supposed to delete emails, or you're supposed to maintain emails for a certain amount of time per the statute, I've seen IT going based on what a director told them, based on what an executive told them, based on what leadership said, and go ahead and erase emails from your email box. I've personally seen it happen. So even if the company says IT is not supposed to do X, Y, and Z, doesn't mean that IT is not going to do X, Y, and Z to protect themselves and to protect the organization. So just make sure you are protecting yourself too by keeping all your data in a place that you have full access and control over, and not giving away that power to the IT department and to the company on your behalf. And then the last chess move number 4. When an extra person is in the room. So you walk into your regular one-on-one, right? And your manager is there and somebody else is there. Sometimes it's your manager's manager. Sometimes it's HR. Sometimes it's another supervisor who you have no dealings with anyway. Sometimes you were not even told an extra person would be there. Nobody even explained why. The meeting proceeds as normal, and you thinking like, oh, it's normal, but it's not. That meeting just became documentation, and the person in the room just became a witness and not a witness for you. That extra person in the room is a witness for the company. The extra person in the room that the company had assigned is not a witness for you. Do not go in thinking that the person is going to have a great recollection of everything that was said, especially if the recollection does not benefit the company, if it benefits you. The person who the company who has assigned in the room is already not neutral, because it was assigned by the company. It was not somebody you elected to come in. So the third person, the third party, the witness in the room is doing stuff like listening to your responses, your demeanor, whether you seem cooperative or defensive, what you said, what you didn't say, how you said it, how the interaction was, what your tone was, how you engaged with the supervisor, or how you corresponded and communicated on the spot. They're documenting all that. They're not just documenting what you say. And now everything that they have documented will be attached to support what your supervisor already has on record, especially in that meeting, because the meeting was never a conversation as far as a sit down to protect you. It was a conversation to protect the company. That's the only reason why companies allow a witness to be in the meetings with you and your supervisor, especially if you don't know the witness is coming in and they have no involvement in your day-to-day daily activities to begin with. Just know that the moment that you see an extra person in a room and you were not made aware of that, you are allowed to ask what your rights are. You're allowed to ask in that meeting what the specific capacity is that person is in the room, because most employees sit through the meeting quiet. They think that, if they ask the question, they'll seem as difficult to work with, if they'll seem being suspicious, but you actually have a right and you should ask. You can ask why the person is there. What is the reason behind it? If the person is there because something formal may be happening right now, or this meeting may be happening to support something formal in the future. You have a right to ask for a union representative. If you're a bargaining unit employee, you have a right to ask for a support person if you need some. You have a right to say that you need somebody in the room if you have a disability. Like, I have PTSD. I'm a disabled veteran, so I have disabilities myself. So I know certain aspects of me inside of the workforce exasperates my condition. I get anxiety. I get hypervigilant. Like there's a lot of things that happen. My blood pressure raises, heart rate, everything. I can't think straight. A lot of things happen when I'm caught off guard. It is a symptom of my disability. So if you have a disability, and even if you did not request an accommodation, you can ask for one right then and there, even in front of the witness, because your witness who is for the company, that witness has to document that too. So if you need a support person, if you need time to process the information, don't be afraid to say so in that meeting itself. Don't be afraid to execute your rights. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the policy. Don't be afraid to ask how the meeting will be used going forward so that you are fully prepared regardless of what happened. And then after the meeting, make sure you send a follow-up the same day, naming everybody who was present. I was in a meeting with you, supervisor, plus the HR representative here. This is what was discussed. This is the time of the meeting. This is what we agreed to. This was the do-outs. This is the deliverables. This is what I understand is going to have next, because your account of that meeting is now in writing as well with the timestamp. It's not just the witnesses and your supervisor, but it's your information too. So let's just sum it all up. Let's sum it all up. I know that was a lot of data, but I summed up and we talked about 4 chess moves. The first chess move is the review that was written before the performance cycle started. The second chess move was the feedback that stopped. Your supervisor went quiet. The third chess move is the documentation request that made you write your own file. And then the fourth chess move was the meeting that added a witness without even telling you a witness was showing up. None of them look like what they were, and all of them built the same thing, the case against you. So before you ever saw a PIP, before you ever saw a disciplinary action, before you ever saw a warning, a write-up, some kind of adverse action against you, one of these things happen. The employee who survives this arc is not the one who performed harder, the one who tried harder after the silence started. It is the one who recognized the silence as a move and responded as it moved to. You can't outperform a decision that was already made. You just can't, because you didn't even know that the decision was or was not made. So you can't outperform it. But what you can do is create a paper trail. You can create a parallel record in sequence that exposes the file and exposes the gap inside of their play. That's architecture. That's exactly what I do. And that is why this show exists, because that's exactly what I'm going to continue to give you. And it starts the moment that you recognize what exactly you're playing with and what you are inside of right now at work. So everything that I just walked you through, the parallel record, the follow-up email, the criteria, the request, the witness documentation, those are not concepts. They are actual scripts. I wrote them from inside of 30 years of executive HR, walking in these cases myself, documenting the stages before you ever needed an attorney and before an attorney ever got involved. I know the play. I know the play because I've witnessed it from both sides of the table. I've witnessed it as an executive. I've witnessed it as the employee, because it's not if it happens, it's when it happens, because the system turns on all of us at one time. So I'm now writing a playbook. And it's called The Record, because 4 moves keep appearing in the same sequence across different industries, different job types, different companies, different situations, different continents, but it's always the same play. So I'm writing these scripts so that you don't have to find the words that you are sitting in the middle of when the time comes when you need it the most. The record is coming soon, and the people who are on the early VIP access list will get it first. So if you want in, drop a comment below with the word record, and I'll make sure you're one of the first people to know when the book is finished. And if you're already inside of something, if you're inside of something active and you need a strategy, you need an architecture before the next move lands, go to HR-armor.com/rapid strategy-session. And that's where you start. That's where you'll find me. That's where I can help you navigate your situation one-on-one and help you get through whatever is happening to you at work right now. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about when the PIP arrives, what it says, what it doesn't say, and what to do in the first 24 hours after it lands to determine everything that comes next. I'm Noël. And this is HR Armor podcast when work turns against you. And I'm here pulling back the curtain on what they never wanted you to know because somebody had to say it out loud.